board will conduct its monthly meeting, monthly business meeting, at which time we will vote on the application. You may stay for the meeting and hear how the applications are decided, or you may leave following the hearing. The applicant and the town board will be sent a copy of tonight's decision. Any other person wishing to receive a copy of a decision can sign the sheet on the table at the front of the room. Those wishing immediate knowledge of the outcome of these proceedings may call the county zoning office tomorrow morning. The procedure we will follow for hearing each application is, after the application is read, the applicant, their agent, or representative will have an opportunity to present their application, followed by any questions or comments from the board. Then all correspondence will be read. Then others in favor will have a chance to speak. Anyone objecting will then have a chance to speak. I will then ask for a summary of the board's field observations and any staff comments. Finally, the applicant will be allowed a chance for a brief rebuttal if they wish. Anyone wishing to speak should use the microphone, state their name, and direct their comments to the board. I ask that all testimony be kept brief, no more than 5 minutes, and to the point. If you are testifying as a nearby landowner, please tell us where your property is located relative to the subject property. Tonight's hearing will be recorded, and the recordings will become part of the record. Comments that are based on hearsay or secondhand information, as well as slanderous or prejudicial remarks, will be ruled out of order. The board has looked at all the properties, and the record will reflect these observations. Any person affected by an administrative decision of this board has 30 days from the filing of tonight's decision to make an appeal. Such appeals shall be heard by the Waushara County Circuit Court. Information is available from the Clerk of Court's office and qualified legal counsel. The county assumes no liability and makes no warranty as to the legality of any construction commenced prior to the expiration of this 30-day period. Now I'll introduce the rest of the board. To my left are Larry Tim, Kevin Fitzgerald, George Wilson, Mark Schumacher, Ruth Zowski, Corp Counsel on the end. My name is Roger Wagner. Terry Dopp-Paukstead is seated to my right. The appeal that will be heard tonight is Glenn and Patricia Gramley, Coloma, Wisconsin, have filed an appeal to the Waushara County Board of Adjustments in accordance with Section 58-106 of the Waushara County Zoning Code to the approval of a conditional use number 1-13 Waushara County Planning and Zoning Committee in regards to a request by Buell Consulting, Daniel and Karen Keynes, landowner, to place a 300-foot self-supporting wireless communications tower with a placement of a 12 by 26 equipment enclosure in the AG General Agricultural Zone. Location, approximate 40.109 acre parcel of land known as Lot 1 of Certified Survey Map number 3125, being part of the southwest 1/4, the southeast 1/4, Section 22, Town of Coloma, W13034, Cypress Avenue. Is the appellant here?
Can I say just a couple of things before we get started? Basically, we will follow the format outlined in the opening statement by the chair. I want to inform you that the board has been furnished with a copy of the entire record concerning this appeal. The board has read these records and the applicable sections of the zoning code and all of the information submitted by the appellant. The board also viewed the property, watched the public hearing tape, and has been furnished with a copy of all the paperwork from the hearing, including correspondence, minutes, and field observations. So there is no reason for anyone who originally testified or submitted correspondence to do so again. The board also made a field visit to see the proposed location of the tower and the location of the nearby homes and the general character of the neighborhood. Because of the volume of correspondence that has been received, the only correspondence that will be read tonight is that which was received after the packets went out to the board. The board will limit any testimony tonight to new and additional information, and we will follow the time limits mentioned in the opening statement. I'd like to explain what authority the Board of Adjustments has. They can grant the appeal and overturn the original decision. They can deny the appeal and support the original decision. They can modify the original decision by adding conditions or adjustments. And they need to look at whether the Planning and Zoning Committee followed the correct procedure in coming to their decision, and whether the decision was a reasonable one based on the evidence presented to them. The other thing the board can consider is whether there is new evidence that was not available to the board or to the committee that presents a strong enough case to overturn the decision of planning and zoning. So that's it for my comments. Now, if the appellant is here, they could come forward.
Would you come forward, please? State your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Carl Seefeld. I would actually like to request at this time that all the emails and correspondence would be read, because we have people here that haven't heard any of this stuff, including our state representative, Scott Klug. I would think that would just be fair to everybody, because we just don't know what everybody wrote. I don't even have a clue what everybody wrote. I have a few correspondence that I have with me, but I don't have the batch of them. So, thank you.
That's at the call of the chair, but I would say that all of the correspondence was in the packet and available for anyone to come in and look at, should they have wanted to. So,
What's the feeling of the rest of the board?
I'd like to ask the opinion of Corporation Counsel whether we should reread the correspondence that was read into the record at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, not for the benefit of the board, because we listened to that, but whether or not it would be appropriate to reread it, because there's people here tonight that weren't here at the original hearing.
You certainly can if you want to, but the decision that needs to be made tonight needs to be made by the board. And if you've read all of the correspondence and you've watched the public hearing tape, you don't need to read it out loud again tonight in order to make your decision. And anyone can come in and get a copy of the entire packet and read it. But if you want to read it, that's fine. If you just want to read the stuff that was submitted after the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, that's fine. It's your call. You're the ones who have to make the decision, not the public who is listening to the correspondence.
Did everybody listen to the tapes?
Yes.
And read the letters?
Yes. Read
The whole packet? 2 packets worth. I don't think we need to have them all read tonight if we've all read them before, if that's okay with the rest of the board.
I agree with that.
Is that a consensus? Okay.
so are you acting as the appellant? Okay.
My name is Pat Gramley, and my husband and I live east of the tower site, directly east. Our property adjoins their property. When we first got a letter, it was 10 days before the initial zoning board meeting, and at that time we had spoken to a few neighbors, and they agreed that they were not happy with the site. So we came to the board meeting, and there was just a handful of us, and we had a handful of letters. Since then, more people have gotten involved. More people are against the site. There have been a lot of questions on property values, on bird migration, on safety. I know that we cannot bring up any health issues, but there are other safety issues, like the collapsing of the towers. I was the one that put the packet together that was in your file, and I highlighted many of the questions that we had and answered some of the questions that Buell Consulting had in their letter. And I have a map here. I'm sure that you all looked at it. Red squares are all the people that are against the tower, and you'll notice they're all within the neighborhood.
That map was in your packet, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. In Buell's letter, they said that we are not living in a residential area. Well, it's not. It's agriculture. But there are 56 homes in that area. That's by the tax records. This is a map of where the homes are located, all these little black dots. That is the tower site. So there's a lot of people that are involved in this, and a lot of people disagree with it. We have over 50 people that are unhappy that this tower site is going up there. They feel like it should be somewhere else, that the consulting company hasn't aggressively looked for a place to put, another place to put this tower. There's so many concerns that they have, and I was going to go through everything with you, but since you read everything, I don't think I need to do that. I think all you gentlemen are smart enough to see what the evidence is, and hopefully you will deny this. Thank you very much for your time.
Can you wait? The committee may have some questions. Is there any board questions? Can you answer questions, please?
Can you basically summarize any new or additional information that you might have for us tonight that you didn't have in January?
Concerning property values or anything
Just
like
anything
that?
that's
Okay.
new or different?
Well, Buell Consulting says that it does not harm property values. Their appraiser sent an appraisal out. That was done in La Crosse. That's like apples to oranges. That is not the Coloma area. That's not Waushara County. Also, the appraiser stated in his finer print that it was a matter of could be or couldn't be decrease in property values. And then he stated also that in New Zealand, which I don't know what has to do with Coloma, but New Zealand's property values went down 20%. This was in their appraiser's report. Bird migration. The United States Fish and Wildlife Service has had a discussion group with the Wisconsin DNR, with the telecommunication representatives, and with biology men from universities that are involved in biology. And they stated that 4 to 5 million birds are killed by towers every year in the United States, the largest being in the state of Wisconsin. And they're all trying to find a solution to this. So the telecommunication industry is aware of this. The Wisconsin DNR is aware of it. With the emissions, the FCC has got their standards, but their standards are just for the antenna on the tower. Every time they co-locate another antenna on that tower, the emissions increase. And they have stated in their report that they have no way of actually calculating what those emissions are. The collapse of towers. They're supposed to collapse upon themselves. We've found many, many instances where they haven't. They're not towers, they're not monopole towers, they're the towers that they're going to put up next door to our home. Due to ice, due to storms. It was also stated by Buell Consulting that the telecommunication towers are good for when there's a disaster, that they're needed for communicating with the first responders and things such as that. Well, when Hurricane Sandy hit, 25% of their towers were not workable. Senator Schumer is investigating it. The FCC is trying to find out what they can do to solve that problem. So that's not all true. There's many things that are not true. There's many things that are being said by the telecommunication industry that the layperson doesn't know any difference. So we believe it.
Didn't realize if you were the first one, you got all the questions, did you?
No, I didn't. And I'm very nervous. I think in closing, I just want to say that you have the authority to deny this petition on several grounds. On property values, on aesthetics, which there's courts in this country that have denied the applications for towers because of aesthetics, and on safety reasons, and on not being aggressive enough by trying to find another location. And I think that is part of the case here. I don't think the company was aggressive enough. There's got to be more than the Canes property, a 100 by 100 foot plot of land that has good radio waves. There's got to be other locations in our area. I'm not against telecommunication. None of us are. We're all for it. I mean, we have cell phones. I had a birthday last week. I just got an iPad. I love it. But it does not belong where there are so many homes. We have bought our homes. Some of us have lived there for all our lives. Some of us have moved there because we enjoy the country. We don't need to look out our window and see something like this. So I hope that you take these 50 people into consideration when you pass your vote and you deny this application for them to put the tower up. Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I found the map that you were talking about, the red one, but the other map that you held up tonight with the dots on it, was that in the packet that you gave us? Okay. Okay.
Another
You've got
thing.
about 150 pages here, so I just couldn't recall seeing that, but that's basically the same as this, but it just shows the house locations, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And today I went through the tax records, and because it was stated that, well, there's other areas that have these towers up in residential areas. I haven't found any place, unless they're talking about Tower Hill. So I went to the tax records, I looked at Tower Hill, from County V to the village limits, from Cree Avenue to Cypress Avenue, there are 33 homes, and that's a bigger area. That's from Section 15 to Section 21. And we're talking about just 2 sections here by the Cypress Avenue location. So.
Do you have any information that would substantiate that the case wasn't handled properly by the planning and zoning?
Well, I can't say it wasn't handled properly. They weren't given all the information because we didn't have all the information. I don't think they took into consideration that there was any opposition. I think that came as a surprise to them and to the landowners and to Buell. Now, there's many, many, many more people that are concerned. We've gotten thank you notes from people thanking us for standing up. This is setting a precedence. I'm not going to be the only one up here. This is going to happen to you guys down the road. If this passes, there's going to be much more of this that you're going to have to listen to from other people that feel the same way in other circumstances.
Any other committee questions?
I have a question. Did you submit this with the airport?
Yes.
Is that on your property at all?
Yes. The majority of it is on our property.
Was that submitted at the planning and zoning also?
No. No.
So that is new information?
Yes, it is.
Basically, that's what we're looking for, something that's new compared.
Like I say, none of us had a clue that this was going to come about until we got a letter 10 days before the meeting. And that's short length of time to try to prepare when you're a novice and you don't know what you're supposed to be preparing for. And none of us are community activists. This is something all new to us. So,
And do you know the approximate distance from the base of the proposed tower to your house? I mean, you're an adjoining property owner.
yes.
To the east.
Now, I'm not sure about that, but I looked at the survey map and it looked like it was 200 and I'm sure Buell could tell you better than me, 236 or 276 feet. I think it was 236. I'm not positive. I really don't know for sure. But this has been in the works since, as far as I know, for at least 7 months before any of us had a clue what was going on. Because if you'll notice on the survey map, the field survey was done in August.
Any other questions? You can have a chair for a while.
Thank you.
Correspondence?
I do have 2 letters that were submitted tonight. One is from the Village of Coloma. It's addressed to the Waushara County Board of Adjustments regarding the location of the Verizon Communication Tower. Dear Sirs, at its regular board meeting on February 28, 2013, the Village Board of the Village of Coloma indicated their willingness to locate a communication tower on village-owned property. The Village Board is receptive to discussion with Central States Tower and its associates. We currently have another communication tower in the village that meets our zoning requirements. And that's signed cordially, Steve Roger, Village of Coloma President. And attached to that, there is a map with several locations highlighted on Village of Coloma property. And the other letter that was submitted is addressed to the Village of Coloma Board, but they're pretty sure it was meant for you, so we're going to read it. I have been informed that Verizon Wireless has plans to construct a cell phone tower on Cypress Avenue in Coloma. This is a significant concern as we own property at N1051 4th Avenue in Coloma, which is very near this proposed site. It has also come to my attention that there are other feasible locations owned by the county and village which are available for lease. These other locations would benefit the community as they would generate tax revenue. A cell phone tower in a residential area doesn't make sense when considering the health risks, impact on property values, and aesthetics of the area. Please deny the request for the permit as there are more reasonable options available. Thank you for your consideration, and that's signed Jim and Mary Ann Witt, W-I-T-T. And that's it for new correspondence.
Okay, do we have someone registered to speak in favor?
Yes, we do.
Maxine Gears?
Hi, I'm Maxine Gears. I live on N947 County Road CH. I'm about less than a half a mile from the new proposed site of the tower. And I guess I am against it because of, I think a new site would be better for the town. I'm definitely worried about the environment of the birds, and I have a big vegetable garden. Is there emissions going to be from this? There's many other going up right on the county line of Adams County and Waushara. There's 3 in that area. And if you've been to Plover lately, there's been many of them put up already. I don't know if they're Verizon's or whose they are. And I am worried about if there is any fire. There is no fire department that's going to be able to get that out. If it was struck by lightning, they would have to, what would they do? And if there's a lot of woods in that area too. And also, if the tower does go up, how many years, if that's not used in 10 years, after it's unused, would this be staying up forever? Or would that have to come down? I don't want to see the flashing lights in the house. I actually did not prepare for anything for tonight, so it's a lot of what I had talked about in January.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Richard Schmidt? Smith? Schmidt?
Richard Schmidt, and I live at Borough Court down in Coloma, about a mile away from this. My concern is the number of sites that are staked out. How many of these are going to be used? Because I know that what they're offering the property owners vary in price. I've heard figures of $1,700. I've heard figures of $1,000. I've heard figures of $700. What do they go to the place where they can get it the cheapest? And then the ones that want more money, where the opposition is, what did they get the tower last? How many towers are we going to get in the county? That's my question.
Okay. Thank you. Brittany Semro.
My name is Brittany Clausen Semro, and this tower would be located about 0.7 miles to the east of the farm that my husband Carl and I recently purchased. With the extreme amount of opposition by the neighboring residents, it is alarming that the conditional use of this tower was approved in the first place. It makes one wonder if those in charge of this county are really qualified for the positions that they are holding. It is seen again and again that the department is making decisions that are not in the best interest of the citizens in this county, and this tower is one of them. It seems that if the applicant has all of their T's crossed and I's dotted, so to say, that the committee is obligated to grant approval for their application, regardless of the concerns of all of those that will be affected. The condition of Waushara County is particularly alarming, and those in charge of making these decisions are the ones to blame. With the factory farm coming into the west of us and the tower coming into the east, it makes one question why these decisions are getting approved and why those in charge are not stopping this destruction. Perhaps it's because they just can't. But if there is a chance that at the very least you can prevent this tower from going up in this location, that would be the right decision. You have heard tonight and will hear continuing more appropriate locations that are not residential areas and where the benefits will be seen by many. They are the place for this type of obstruction. You have the opportunity tonight to make a difference, to make a wrong decision into a right one. As you vote tonight, consider the condition of this county. When casting your decision, are you really looking out for the welfare of the citizens of Waushara County? And then think, how would you vote if this tower was going up in your backyard? Take a stand and make the right decision.
Robert Martin. Okay. Okay, Ray Burrows.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of the Village of Coloma. We checked off that we're neither for or against this project as it stands. We're here to offer alternative locations. The Village of Coloma has several locations that are village-owned, and we are interested in talking to the tower people. In that reference, then, these cell towers use no water or sewer, and they are a good candidate for land that is unsuitable for other types of construction and building value for taxes. They're somewhat similar to like a mini warehousing project. It's also my opinion that a cell tower doesn't create an environmental hazard to the groundwater. I mean, we've talked about the other things they've been talking about. I'm not sure about this. But the village has 3 prime locations and a couple of non-prime locations. We have some rough land in our industrial park that is served by all of our utilities and available. We have a 35-acre parcel south of the village that contains an old landfill site, and the old landfill covers approximately 4 acres of this land. There is 15 to 20 acres of that property that is original old oak and pine forest that is not contaminated. A third site would be a northeast corner of our sewer facility. Probably contains 2 to 3 acres of available space. The fourth and fifth are, we have a water tower that has been talked about for cell tower use in the past, and we have a corner of a park, but that also creates, there's a residential area nearby. Sites 1, 2, and 3 are probably, a good 1,000 feet from any residence easily. So the Village of Coloma is eager to discuss options and things, land available to the cell tower company. Thank you.
Thank
The photograph that you sent out of the 3 areas showing the dump site,
Yes, sir.
that property that you have the star on being south of the present dump site,
Yes, sir.
that's old forest, isn't it? I
Yes,
mean,
it
it's
is.
never been turned over that you're aware of.
That's correct.
Never been used for a dump.
No,
in
never
its
been tilled. Virgin, I would say.
Okay.
The southern half of the, basically, of
40.
this parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Seefeld?
My name is Sue Seefelt, and I live on Cypress, Cypress Avenue, across the street and just to the west of the proposed tower site. I understand we can't discuss health risks, but it is a major, concern of ours. I won't go into a lot of detail about that, but we ask the board members and the zone administrator to remember that they are the public servants of the taxpaying citizens of Waushara County, not of Buell, Consultant, or Verizon. It's our right, we feel, as taxpaying citizens to want to keep our neighborhood in the natural, beautiful setting in which we have built our homes. For the purpose of this tower, you tell us we are zoned agricultural. We have 39 acres, and of those 39 acres, we are assessed with 7 acres undeveloped, 31 acres forest, and 1 acre is assessed and taxed at the site acre with our dwelling. According to the tax assessor for the town of Coloma, he has 2 choices to tax that 1 acre site, either commercial or residential. We are not commercial, therefore our tax base is residential. Contrary to the arguments of communication industry lawyers, looks do matter. In 1984 case, Justice Stevens for the United States Supreme Court wrote, "The character of the environment affects the quality of life and the value of property in both residential and commercial areas." We ask that you keep the cell tower from our residential area. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. John Rowland?
My name is John Rolane. I live on Cypress Avenue. I'm just southeast, right across the road where we're proposing to put that tower in. I'm probably one of the oldest owners of property there. When I first bought my property, during the winter time, I'd have to walk into it. It was an old gravel road. They never plowed it and that. I bought it because it was a country scene that. Now they put in the blacktop, the houses popped up in that area. Now I'm going to be forced to look out my windows and look at this 300-foot tower every day. I have 4 French-style doors in front of my house, and there's no way I'm not going to see this thing. And I'm totally against it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, John. Thomas Pinter?
Tom Pintar, Town of Coloma. I'm on 4th Avenue, about 3/4 of a mile southwest of where the tower would be. I don't know how brief I can make this. I've been substitute teaching for 16 years. It's hard for me to shut up. But let me just say that I think yesterday I was teaching a class in Algebra 1, and we were on equations. You got an equation here. You have one side of this issue where you have a cell tower company that wants to put this tower where they want it, and you want a landowner that wants it there. And on the other side, you have 40-plus people that are protesting it. You have the village of Coloma that would love to have it, would love to have the revenue from it. The revenue from it would actually, there's 458 people in the village of Coloma that would benefit from having this tower on village property from the rental income. So I think it's an equation that you have to look at. Any questions?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tom. Carl Seefeld.
Hi, hello, my name's Carl Seefeld. I live right across our property is right across the road from the Kaintz property. And to start with, let's just get a little perspective on this whole issue. It really kind of comes down to just money. I call it, the tower companies are renters, and just that, just renters. This land, I'm being told over and over, is zoned agriculture, and these cell towers don't raise any kind of crop at all. The cell tower stuff is not forestry, it's quite the opposite. If we're going to permit a cell tower in the agricultural zone, the going rate for this dry farmland is like $0 to $25 an acre. That is if you can find someone to rent it, and then good luck collecting your rent. I can tell you from a little experience. For hunting land, again, it's like $0 to $15 per acre per year. It's obviously that the cell tower company stuff has to bribe someone to let them into their neighborhood. No one would be silly enough to put a tower on for the going yearly rent of the land out there for $25 a year or something, you know? So this is obviously a commercial placement in an ag zone because they're not raising any kind of crop, and the income is not related to agriculture in any way, shape, or form. Addressing land values. I don't know if you're aware of it, but if you decide you want to sell your property, you have to disclose that a cell tower is in your neighborhood or that an application has been made for one. It does affect property values. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a requirement for you to have to talk about it. I feel we've been misled through the years. I don't know how many of you guys remember Paris Green at all. I don't think anybody does. You know, it was an insecticide that came before DDT, and it was literally a walk in the park compared to DDT. And then came DDT, terreethyl lead in gasoline, lead in paint, asbestos, the tobacco industry, atrazine. They used to tell us you could drink a glass of it and it wouldn't hurt you. And the most recent thing that has come up is secondhand smoke. These were all government approved at one time, and many of them are still subsidized by the government. Trust is really a hard sell based on history. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, said Abraham Lincoln. At the January 24th public hearing, the zone administrator stated that the conditions placed on it will help ensure that it will be a good neighbor to the surrounding neighborhood. She also stated that some may consider a house intrusive. We do not feel that any houses in our neighborhood are intrusive. In fact, I welcome a good neighbor. I mean, that's where we get our people to go to church, and I call it join our service clubs and that. You don't get them from a tower in there. So about a couple years ago, we had a landowner next to us, and he had to have approval to put a travel trailer on his property. And now we're told that we have nothing to say about this tower, which we feel doesn't make a good neighbor. If the trailer doesn't work out, it has a trailer hitch on it, and they can pull it out. I haven't seen one of these towers yet with a trailer hitch on it. They just, that's it. They're there, and there's nothing we can do about it. And as our church pews get emptier and the population of Coloma actually has declined, and our service organizations are starving for members, it's pretty obvious to me that these cell towers aren't going to make good neighbors. Our small-town businesses suffer from this because people like me, we don't want to confront taking the chance of running into the neighbors that kind of disrupted the peace in our neighborhood and stuff. So we choose to move along and not go to our local businesses because of those reasons. The zone administrator also stated at the last meeting, I could not find a lot of proof that there is danger to people and wildlife. Well, you got to look a little bit, I guess. In my understanding, and the tower guy will correct me if I'm wrong, that you can hold your ear to the tower. That was a quote from the zone administrator. And yet those who work on the towers are restricted the amount of time that they can be exposed. So we were told to come up with some new considerations, and this one is agriculture. Kind of close to my heart again. When I farmed in that, I had honeybees. I've been reading the effect of cell towers on honeybees. It has been proven that cell towers are detrimental to the honeybees because it disorients them, and they cannot return to their hives, and they die, of course. One article stated that a lot of the mobile beekeepers will not place hives within 1 mile of a cell tower. With this proposed tower, there is absolutely no concern for the destruction of honeybees. Up to 75% of our food needs to be pollinated in one way or another. Although
Excuse me, but it's been 5 minutes. Can you wrap it up a little bit?
Okay, I'll do this then. I'll skip over to this here. I have some comparisons here of other areas showing the ratio of population to the cell towers, and it becomes extremely unbalanced around Coloma. The area, my former home area was Kewaskum. We have a population of 4,000 people there. In the township, we have 1,119 using the same 4-mile comparison. I'm trying to hurry a little bit here now. And we have 13 cell towers and more proposed in Coloma. And I have a little readout on it if you want to see it. I call it, Kewaskum has 8 towers and no new towers proposed and 34 antenna. And I've got like 3-4 other villages that are comparable size, and we just seem to have like an awful, unusual ratio. I mean, that's 10 times the population being served by less towers and the same amount of antennas. There's something wrong here, and I call it, they're going to tell us that that this is recreational in the summer. Well, that's, again, that's nothing compared to the Kewaskum area that has the state forest and the huge campgrounds. And I can tell you, these people aren't leaving their cell phones at home. I don't understand how they can service 10 times the populace with less towers. You know, it just doesn't make sense. So do we have to really have them is the first thing. And if we're going to have them, I suggest that we look for alternate sites that aren't as intrusive as this one. I'm going to conclude with that. Would you like to see my 11th hour comparisons?
Sure.
I also have the petition that 41 neighbors and that have signed. And I'd like to hand that in to them.
Is that the petition we already have?
We also have more people signed on since we only had 10 days to get those folks and get this into you guys. And we also got, I call another one there. We have one with 40. Pardon? Oh, well, I'll hand it in.
So
Thank you.
there's-
Do you have any questions of me?
So there is one more name on here.
We added since then?
The original one had 40 signatures on it, so.
We have Brent Clausen added to the new petition.
Okay.
Thank you. We have registered to speak in opposition to the application, Nathan Ward.
Good evening, members of the Board of Adjustment. I'm going to try to reply simply to the items that have come up this evening, hoping that these are all the new items that have transpired since the Planning and Zoning Committee met and ruled on this application. I'd like to start by first and foremost reminding the board that the reason that we're here this evening is to determine whether or not the application is of merit and whether or not the Planning and Zoning Committee acted appropriately in their ruling approximately a month ago. It is not the intention of this meeting to try and find a new home for this tower, to recommend that it should be sent or located somewhere else within the community. On behalf of the applicant, they feel that they have done their due diligence in following the Waushara County Code with respect to siting a communications tower. They have provided the evidence as to why they cannot utilize existing towers within the community, those being nearest to the area that they're trying to improve service to with this particular tower. That information was included with the original application and was discussed at the Planning and Zoning Committee. I'm going to try and run these down in order, so hopefully I don't overlook them. If you read with respect to property values, if you read the appraisal that was done in its entirety some 2 years ago in La Crosse County, the reason that was provided was because this area is similar in nature and makeup to La Crosse County, specifically town of Washington, in the number of residences, the number of farms, the number and type and style of towers. It would be nearly impossible to do an exact replica apples-to-apples comparison for the appraisal purpose. If you speak with any realtor or person that does this type of work, they'll tell you that they will do the best they can to try and simulate or gather information for a specific tower siting and whether or not it affects property values. If you read that property report in its entirety using, again, locations similar to Waushara County, those throughout the town of Washington, the evidence comes back and says that no, the placement of the tower does not specifically affect property values in that rural setting. Next, and with respect to migratory birds, this application has gone before U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and has been granted approval by that body. They had made a recommendation to first and foremost utilize a tower that does not use guy wires, which we have acquiesced, and we do that in most instances when we're in a migratory bird situation. That is their first and primary concern because they're very difficult for birds to see. Secondly, with respect to lighting, they had recommended that we have this tower flash the white strobe light 24/7, which would have meant a very piercing, bright white light during the evening and overnight hours. We were able to convince U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that that's not in the best interest of the community, so it will have the traditional red incandescent light at night. With respect to tower safety, the tower meets the setback distances that the county has set forth at 75% of its height. Some of the surrounding communities, Marquette County requires only a 50% distance for a collapse radius of the tower. The examples that were provided by the appellant are extreme circumstances showing tower failure. They cite specifically Hurricane Sandy. Those are weather events that are just simply impossible to assure that a structure is not going to fail, homes included. If 25% of those towers were not operational after Hurricane Sandy, at least 75% of them were and did aid in the recovery effort. With respect to the residential aspect of the area, the reply was simply that this is an agricultural area. Yes, it does have homes. We cite towers in areas that have significantly more homes than this. In fact, there are more towers necessary in areas where there are more homes because there are more people that utilize cell phone and wireless communications. With respect to emissions, there is a cumulative effect. The more antennas that you add to a specific tower or location, all of the providers, wireless providers, are mandated by the FCC that they meet cumulative RF emission requirements, and that is monitored and done on a regular basis, as it is a part of the FCC license that they hold. With respect to the airport that was once there, the old strip, it is not a functional airport. With respect to this being a precedent-setting occurrence, it simply is not. You have provided and issued permits for similar towers of size, stature, and in similar proximity to other homes throughout Waushara County. With respect to fire and lightning, there's nothing on the tower to catch fire. It's very limited. There's a small amount of plastic and coating on the coaxial cables and the antennas. Otherwise, it's all metal. In rare circumstances, a lightning strike may cause some of that to burn. Examples that were given of pictures of towers that were on fire had other types of equipment on them. And then specifically with regard, again, to the setback distance, a question was asked. The distance from the tower base to the Gramley's property to the property line is 278.8 feet. The distance to their home site is approximately 700 feet. And with that, I'm available for any questions that the board may have.
I've got a couple questions. Were you involved in the original, in preparing the original conditional use application?
Yes, sir, I was.
At that time, did you, as part of your preparation, did you talk to any landowners other than the landowner who owns the property you'll be renting? Did you talk to any neighbors at all?
As far as making the application or looking for a home for the...
As part of the application process before the public hearing, did you go around and talk to any of the neighbors?
I did not speak to the neighbors specifically, other than those other property owners that we originally had interest in potentially siting the tower.
So the only other landowners you talked to were other potential site landowners?
Correct.
Okay. And then at the time that you made the application, were you aware of the private airstrip there?
I had been on the property several times, yes. Had noticed it both on several different mapping items that are available. And again, the airport, it's not an active airstrip.
That's still all the questions I had.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. On the property comparisons that you gave from La Crosse County, you stated that similar rural aspects were included. But if you look at the pictures that you submitted on page 21, I think, you show comparisons to straight tower, not lattice tower. That's on page 19, of homes that look like they're in a city. And on page 21, you show a comparison home that has sidewalks and gutters, as if it's in a city. And on comparison 3, another house in a residential neighborhood with gutters. And the other ones are the same with gutters in the other comparisons. And all the towers are at least 100 feet shorter than the one you proposed. Could you explain that to me a little?
Yes, again, it goes back to the appraiser and the method that they use in trying to find like comparisons. And this particular study was done in the area of La Crosse County. The nearest comparisons that they had are represented in that report. We've not been specifically asked to provide a report to this body for this particular application. It is not part of your county requirement to provide that information. We gave you the best that we had as a recent example in a similar area.
You stated that our job here in looking at this appeal, that we cannot modify the provisions that was set forth by the zoning board?
No, I hope that that is not what I tried to convey. It was explained earlier that you have every right to make additional modifications or changes to the ruling. I was merely trying to state that the reason for the appeal is to determine whether or not the application is of merit and whether or not the Planning and Zoning Committee acted accordingly.
I thought for sure you said we can deny it or
Oh, no.
accept it, and we had no other alternatives.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay, Thank you. Okay, we have register to speak in register only in opposition but not speak. Danielle Keynes. Raise your hand, please. Okay. And Karen Keynes, register in opposition but not speak. Yep, we have it. And appear and speak for information only. State Representative Scott Krug.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for the time tonight. Just wanted to come up and speak for information only. My position doesn't allow me to be in favor or opposed to it. I just wanted to give you some of the information that comes through my office. And it's not too often that such rural issues generate such fervor in my office as this issue has. So I wanted to convey that to the board, that we have had a lot of contact from residents in the area. And like I said before, it's a very rare occurrence that we have that much opposition to a single issue from such a rural area. I do think it is appropriate for me to ask you to use some of the reasonableness standards that you mentioned before about the alternative placements, more consideration for those placements, the benefit to the betterment of the rest of the area of Coloma, as the village mentioned. There would be benefit to the other residents of the village also if there was some more modification to that. So that's all I wanted to speak to about tonight, was the amount of contact I received and that there is other options available. Are there any questions? Wonderful. Thank you. No problem.
Staff comments.
I'm going to try to speak very clearly because I'm afraid some of my comments from the last public hearing might have been misinterpreted or misheard. But the one thing I did want to address that was brought up was about what happens to the tower should it be vacated and no longer used. And the county does have a bonding requirement for towers. And once they cease operation for 1 year, then the county collects that bond money and goes in and dismantles the tower. And it's based upon the size of the tower and estimates for that dismantling at that time. So just so you're aware of that. I'd also like to remind the board of FCC rules. It's the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that prohibit local governments from denying the siting of wireless communication towers solely on concerns over emissions, provided that the tower placement complies with the FCC's regulations pertaining to emissions. So any health or environmental concerns brought forth by the neighbors because of emissions from the cell tower cannot be considered as a reason for denial, provided all those FCC rules are complied with. The FCC has approved this tower location. In addition, the FCC goes on to regulate radio frequencies at prescribed limits. This is done to reduce and or eliminate interference with other radio frequency using devices. This regulation by the federal government also supersedes any local regulation on interference. So this is also means the board cannot consider potential interference as a reason to overturn the original decision of the Planning and Zoning Committee. As far as the coverage maps and other information provided by the applicant, this is something that we have relied on from engineers working to locate this equipment in all the other cases. These maps are very similar to maps that were used when determining locations for towers recently placed by Waushara County to serve for emergency radio communications. I'm also not aware of a tower that is not currently hosting other equipment as part of a co-location policy. Everyone tells me that leasing space on an existing tower is economically more viable than constructing a tower to place their equipment on. Even Waushara County, when they placed their equipment, worked very hard to locate their equipment on existing towers before resorting to construct new towers of their own. So I think that basic premise of tower location can't be disputed. I did check with the local assessor regarding assessed values of properties that have towers on them or are near towers such as this. He told me towers themselves are not assessed on the property taxes, but are assessed separately through the Department of Revenue Telecommunications Division. As far as assessment of properties that have cell towers on them or that have cell towers nearby, The assessor for the town of Coloma told me that he has not seen any evidence that property values are lowered because of the tower. He went on to say that property values are down already in the town due to the economy, and that there has not been a lot of recent sales to make current comparisons, but he has not seen evidence of the towers that are there affecting property values around the towers that are already in the town. And he also told me that there are no directives in the assessor's manual for the state of Wisconsin that direct assessors to lower property values near towers. I also checked with 2 different employees of the DOT Bureau of Aeronautics. They informed me that the airstrip near this placement is a private airstrip and it is registered and on the maps. They went on to state that no protections are provided to private airstrips by the FAA or state DOT. Those protections only apply to public airports. They said that the owner of a private airstrip is basically on their own when trying to provide protection to that airstrip from development on neighboring properties. Because it appears that the land which the airstrip is on has now been divided and is owned by possibly 3 separate property owners, the whole matter has become further complicated. When I asked how someone would go about abandoning an airstrip that is owned by more than one person, they weren't sure, but thought that if one landowner sent in a letter requesting abandonment, they would have to honor that. That also meant that another landowner could then send in a letter asking to have the portion on their property re-registered as a private airstrip. They did go on to say that if a tower is constructed in the proposed location, the airstrip would be too unsafe to use for any aircraft, essentially rendering the airstrip unusable regardless of its listed status. I would also like to remind the board that this area is zoned general agricultural. It is apparent that there is not a lot of active agricultural activity going on in the area other than forestry, but it is still zoned HE, which is one of the zones that allow wireless communications towers as a conditional use. It is not zoned residential. People may be taxed as residential because their home is on the property, but it is still zoned agricultural, and it's listed as future agricultural on the town's land use maps. However, it should also be noted that because there is not a great deal of active agriculture in the area, there has been subdividing of properties, and that is evidenced by the multiple owners of the airstrip. And then with subdividing, quite often the building of seasonal or permanent homes follows. And there certainly are several homes in the area, as noted by the appellant and by the board when they visited the property. Wireless communications towers almost always generate some level of controversy, and the decisions made by the Planning and Zoning Committee are not always popular. In this case, they made a decision to allow location of a telecommunications tower on this property based on the evidence presented to them at the public hearing back in January. The Board of Adjustments must now ascertain if there were any improprieties in the procedure followed by the Planning and Zoning Committee, whether the decision the Planning and Zoning Committee was not whether the decision the Planning and Zoning Committee made was not correct based on the evidence presented to them, or whether there is some new evidence that was presented by the appellants that would warrant the approval of the appeal and thus overturn the decision of the Planning and Zoning Committee. And finally, I'd like to remind everyone that because the board is a quasi-judicial body of Waushara County government, any appeals of this decision would be filed with the circuit court. That's it for my comments. I don't know if Corporation Counsel has any.
Okay. The appellant have anything in rebuttal to statements made tonight? Sure.
My name is Glenn Gramley. I live on the east of the property that where the tower is proposed, and I'm asking for denial of the conditioning use permit. I've been here since 1958, and I moved on this location 7 years ago to build a house. And the reason I built it there was because it was a nice, quiet neighborhood. Everybody took care of their property. It was a nice, quiet place without a tower. Now we're talking about residential buildings. I went from the south side of Stevens, or the north side of Stevens Point, down to 294 on Route 39, and there's a bunch of towers. There isn't one tower that's near a building from Stevens Point down to Portage. There isn't a building around, they're out in the field. And that's why we're asking, you know, that we're in a residential, what I call residential area, and the tower. There is one building that I did see near a tower, and that's about, I estimate, a football field away from it. At the last meeting, I was talking to Nathan out in the hallway, and I said, there's 40 acres there. Why can't they set that tower off of the road and in the back of the 40? He said, because they put it in forest crop, and the DNR won't let us put any towers on managed land that they manage. So why is it good enough for the DNR to say that we can't put up a tower, and we're right in the middle of a bunch of houses, and we got a tower right by our road, right in our front yard? Don't make sense to me. I'm asking you guys, would you like to have a 30-story building next door to your house or out by your road? And that's what we're getting, equivalent to a 30-story building. And we've been asking a number of times, are we going to be reassessed for property values, 30 or 40 of us, if this goes up? That was a question for you guys. I don't know. Will we be reassessed?
I don't think we can answer that.
Well, I guess that's all I got to say, but the main point was there wasn't a building from that Stevens Point down to Portage. You know, I'm wondering why we have to be in there, and they say there's other buildings around. I guarantee anybody in here can go look and drive that what I drove and see if you see a building anywhere near it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That closes the public hearing for the Board of Adjustments. We will adjourn to the room right outside the door for our monthly business meeting. You're welcome to come in and hear how the application is decided.
You haven't brought your schedule on.
I think they're confused about what they should do.
Anyone that wants to hear the deliberations of the Board of Adjustments can go in that room and listen to the deliberations and the decision. And I'd also like to remind everyone, if anyone's here for Joshua and Faith Kyle, they have asked that their application be tabled until next month's public hearing.
Fill that room up.
I will call this meeting of the Waushara County Planning and Zoning Committee to order. This meeting will be conducted in the same manner as the applications heard by the Board of Adjustments. Please remember to keep your comments brief and relative to the matter at hand. The same time limits will apply to testimony, which is 5 minutes for the applicant outside of the committee questions and 3 minutes for other testimony, including the rebuttal by the applicant. Anyone other than the applicant or representative wishing to speak at this hearing must have registered. Anyone who has not should do so immediately and submit the registration slip to the zoning administrator. The committee has looked at all the properties and recorded would reflect these observations. Following the public hearing, the committee will conduct their monthly business meeting, at which time we will vote on the applications. You may stay and hear how the applications are decided, or you may leave the public hearing. Any persons affected by the administrative decision of the committee has 10 days from the filing of tonight's decision to make an appeal. Such appeals are heard by the Board of Adjustments. Information and applications are available from the zoning office. The county assumes no liability and makes no warranty as to the legality of any construction commenced prior to the expiration of the 10-day period. I will now introduce the zoning committee. Far left, Joe Piaski, Larry Crawford, Fred Gallerup, Terry Dopp Poxted. To my right, zoning administrator. My name is Mark Kirschner. First application and only application tonight. D. Paul and Diana Weaver, Hardensburg, Kentucky. Maddie Detweiler, Watoma. Landowner have made application for conditional use in accordance with sections 58-724, paragraph 5, paragraph A of the Waushara County Zoning Code to reestablish a bakery operation with retail sales, utilizing an existing 32 by 52 building in a CS commercial service zone. Location, an approximate 200 by 300 portion of an existing 12.15 acre parcel of land known as Lot 1 of Certified Survey Map number 905, being part of the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter, section 14, town 18 north, town of Marion, fire number W5610, County Road F. Is the applicant present? Would you come forward, please? Can you state your name for the record, please? Could you state your name for the record, please?
E. Paul Weaver of Breckenridge County, Kentucky. Our address is Hardensburg, Kentucky, 40143, 681 Heckerson Cemetery Road. And I guess our reason for coming here is because we were notified that Maddie Detweiler's bakery was for sale, and we looked into it, and we were encouraged to take it up, and I guess we at this point have a family of my wife and I and 3 daughters, and that's what we are planning to start out the bakery with, and a similar system as what she would have, and not saying that we won't increase more if the baked goods sell well, and we might increase to a few more employees later. That we don't know at this point, but that's our idea of starting out and trying to perform some baked goods for this community and take up the work that she has left off I understand, a little over a year ago. And we hope we can be an asset to the community that way, and also be able to make a desirable living for our own family, and basically, and not necessarily to make a great big business out of it, that we want to become a big business name or anything, but that we do have a desire to have an honest livelihood and a livelihood for our family, and especially being our younger children are girls. Well, we thought that's a good opportunity for them. I guess that's basically the reason that the opportunity was given to us, the invitation was given, and that's why we looked into it.
Okay. The committee has a few questions for you, and so committee questions, please.
Yeah, could you describe the proposed business in a little bit more detail? What do you plan on doing? You plan on making everything? You plan on buying things?
Well, we plan to probably buy the products to make it with, but we expect it to be homemade food and baked there in the bakery and made in the bakery. You don't expect to be going to the store and buying baked goods and then trying to resell them there. I mean, we want to try to bake what we want to.
What sort of traffic do you anticipate? Do you feel there's adequate parking area there?
Guess that's a question I can't answer. I mean, we're new in this area, and we were only here a few times, and I don't really know exactly what they anticipate, or what to anticipate on that. I guess probably similar to what she would have had, but I don't know.
Are you planning an advertising sign?
Yes, we are.
Have you talked with the building inspector and the public health department to see if there are any upgrades are necessary to the building or the equipment?
I understand that Maddie had contacted that was supposed to be taken care of tomorrow.
It would be new equipment, or was there equipment
No,
bought
it's
with
equipment
it?
that she has in there already is coming along with it.
What type of sanitary facilities are in the building? Bathrooms?
There's a regular bathroom there, There's wash tubs to wash stainless steel wash tubs to wash in, and there's, I would think those would have met the requirements before. What was there before, what was there before is still there.
Do you know if there's any floor drains in the building, and how will the waste from these drains be disposed of?
Well, I suppose we go through the system that's there already. We haven't really worked with that system. I mean, the system that she had in beforehand.
But they're asking, is there any drains in the floor rather than drains from the sink?
Like
I've never been in the kitchen part. Is there a floor drain in it?
Can I ask?
I don't think there was. There wasn't any plans for that in the plumbing to begin with, but
That I can't answer.
okay.
I mean, I've been in the
If there
building.
are, if there is a floor drain, there are some special requirements for those, so we might have to look at that. But if there's not, which is my guess, because I don't think there was, then you're okay. But just wanted to make you aware of that.
Okay, are there any other buildings or additions being planned to the building now?
Not at the present time.
Will all the activities be inside, no business or products stored outside? You aren't going to have displays to sell other things there?
Not that we're aware of it now. I don't know what'll happen later, but at the present time, we're not planning to.
Are you planning any changes to the driveway?
Not that I'm aware of.
Has there been a recent survey that you know of?
I would suppose when she put it there, I guess. I looked at the survey she has, but I don't know if there's any direct recent one there. I can't answer that one.
You know where the lot lines are?
My son has walked them, yes.
If approval is obtained, when do you plan to begin the operation?
Well, we'd like to be operating by at least Memorial Day if possible.
That's all the questions we have. That's it.
Do you plan on carrying pretty much the same products that Maddie did? Are you familiar with what?
My
she
wife
carried?
has her recipes and so forth, and that's what we would plan to start with, yes.
Cheesy bread?
Little-
Spellbinder cookies?
I know she has quite a few bread recipes, that I can tell you. I haven't looked them all over.
It lives just around the corner.
Yeah, I live just around the corner, so if this is approved, we're going to be neighbors.
Was there still quite a little equipment left there?
There's basically the base equipment is in there, as I understand it. Would be a few things like maybe a bread warmer to put your in to warm your, get your loaves to raise and things like that. But I think the refrigerator and the bake ovens and the mixers and that stuff's there.
Still there.
Okay.
Okay, any other committee questions, Larry or Fred? Nope. Terry? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
I have my request for my favorite recipes in, so.
You're all set. Okay, correspondence, please.
We have one letter from the Town of Marion Board Chairman, and it's dated February 22nd, 2013, and it says, "The Township of Marion Board has no opposition to the establishment of a bakery in Maddie's Bakery previous location." And that's signed Gary Waleko, Chairman, Town of Marion.
Okay.
One registered to speak in favor.
Norm Reinford? Do you want to come up and,
Do you want to speak?
you want to speak or just
Oh, register, oh, I'm
register
sorry.
only? Okay, just register only, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, staff comments, please?
Okay, I would like to point something out. This is a conditional use in the commercial service zone, and if this had happened to transpire before the year was up that Maddie closed, we wouldn't be here. But our code says that once an operation has ceased for more than 12 months, we need to go back and start over. So that's why we're here tonight. I know it wasn't much longer than a year, but it was longer than a year. For the record, the committee has previously been furnished with a copy of the site plan and all the other pertinent data for this and the other applications that will be considered tonight. I think you all know about conditional uses, so I'll save that for another day. When the committee visited the property, they noted that the existing driveway has good visibility. There's already a fire number there. There's posts for an advertising sign, so they were guessing you were going to use those for a new sign. and that the proposal appears to be very similar to what had operated in this location in the past, and that there would be no major changes. And I think the only other thing that came up is expanding the business. If you did plan on selling other things or having a lot of display area outside, you'd probably have to come back to the committee if it's going to transform into something else. But running the bakery like Maddie did is what the application is for.
Okay.
Can you tell me, was Gary's letter in favor of?
No opposition.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, is there anything the applicant would like to tell us, anything else? Sounds good. Okay, that concludes our applications for tonight. And, go ahead.
Gary, see, from what I understood is they're gonna purchase all the land. So do we need to get a survey of this parcel separate?
As long as they know where the lot lines are from before, and you're gonna buy both the business and the home. You're gonna buy the whole piece of property. You're not purchasing a portion of it, and that survey was done. Hope I have a copy. That survey was done in 1981. So if they can find all of the stakes and know where the property lines are, I'm not
Said he
sure.
saw the survey.
Yeah, I mean, I have a copy of it here, too. It's older, but
Said his son had walked the,
I didn't think there was a need to have a survey for it, but I didn't know if there was gonna be a separate parcel, if it was gonna keep it together.
it's all going to go together the way I understand it.
any other questions, Joe?
No, that's it.
Okay, once again, that concludes our applications for tonight. We will now conduct our monthly business meeting. Approval of the agenda in front of you.
Second.
Motion made by Larry, seconded by Joe to approve the agenda in front